How's it going, guys? It's your boy, Skeleton Man, or what I'm soon going to look like if the world continues to trend the direction that it's trending. With World War III about to pop off in certain places thanks to great leaders with great legacies like Joe Biden. But I'm here just giving you a glimpse of what's to come. This, if I seem scatterbrained, that's because this is take two of this episode. Because I'm an idiot, and I recorded a whole 35-minute episode without having my microphone on. So, I have a video of me talking, jaw in my mouth, making the worst points you've probably ever heard in your life, and none of it was captured on audio. I went to go convert it to an MP3 file so I can clean it up, make it sound nicer, make it sound more refined. And the file was super small, and I wondered why. And then I started listening to it, and I'm like, maybe I didn't turn my headphones on. No, I just didn't turn my mic on. So, this is take two of this episode. I thought that I did pretty well in the last one too. But there are not that many things to talk about. Nothing really significant has happened since I last talked to you, besides the 2024 presidential election. So, as you can see on this graphic that I have pulled up, Donald Trump was elected for a second time. He did one of the rarest things in US presidential history, which is getting a second term that was non-consecutive. And while he did win the popular vote, the gap is kind of closed as votes are being tallied and in different counties across the United States and different states. Mail-in ballots are being processed. But the race was called. Donald Trump won. He won the popular vote, and he won the Electoral College, which is what matters the most. I'm going to be completely honest. I mean, you guys don't have to take my word for it. Just listen to my last episode. I predicted a Kamala Harris win, and that was just less to do with... I was worried about voter fraud, but not in the sense that people really use the term. But I was more worried about how effective the astroturfing of Kamala Harris was for the past few months since she was announced as the candidate for the Democratic Party. She went from being the most unpopular vice president in recent American history, if not in all of American history, to almost winning the election. While yes, Trump did win 312 electoral votes, if you look at the swing states that really decided this election and decide every election. Wisconsin, Trump won by 30,000 votes. Michigan, he won by 80,000 votes. Pennsylvania won by 120,000 votes. So the election was decided by a couple 100,000 votes. So it was close. So the astroturfing that the media performed for Kamala Harris was effective. She almost became president, going from the least unpopular to almost winning the presidency, to only losing by a couple 100,000 votes in swing states. So I like to discount the legacy media all the time. I insult the legacy slur media. I think it's the worst slur you could call someone, being a member of the legacy media. But they still have power. Their power is dwindling, but they managed to boost Kamala Harris into almost being the president of the United States. Somebody who is pro-war, somebody who is a corporatist. She has that letter signed, that glowing endorsement by all the former Trump aides and Trump advisors and Trump military generals, all these former Republicans that are now coming out and supporting Kamala Harris in droves, and all these CEOs of corporations. I'm sorry, but I don't want the candidate to win who's getting glowing endorsements from the corporations who have helped destroy, or tried to destroy, and are succeeding in destroying America, that have sucked the American economy dry. Or the candidate that's getting endorsements from people who are pro-war, bloodthirsty, animals who invest and have a vested interest in wars, either starting or continuing for years and years to come. The architect of the Iraq and Afghanistan war, Dick Cheney, endorsed Kamala Harris. His daughter, who's done nothing spectacular or noteworthy in her entire life besides losing her re-election by like 25 or 30 points, because she came out and she tried to be one of those, she tried to make herself a martyr as someone who, I'm going to do it. I'm going to stand up to the orange man. I can't believe the Republican Party has gone away from being pro-war and pro-corporation and elitist to being something resembling a populist party, or they're trying to. Members of it are populist. There are still a lot of neocon warhawks like Mitch McConnell and Mitt Romney and Marco Rubio that are in power. But, long story short, Donald Trump is already making progress. He's already making a positive impact on not just the United States, but the world. Just something small and temporary, but in the wake of his election, the markets saw a significant boost. And then when he nominated RFK Jr. for head of the HHS, a bunch of medical corporate stocks started to tank, which I'm glad. If companies like Moderna and Pfizer lose a little bit of money because someone with morals and with respect for the scientific method has the potential of getting into a position of power where he reigns supreme over these pieces of trash, I'm happy. Moderna can afford it. Go look at how much money they made off of the COVID vaccine. Look at how much money Pfizer made off the COVID vaccine. Look at the map of the last 5 years of both of these stocks, and you'll see a huge jump during the coronavirus pandemic. And on the long-term side, potentially, the most important news, China has expressed a desire to improve relations with America. Qatar, which is the home for many of the leaders of Hamas, the founders of Hamas. They're millionaires. They don't get involved in the fighting themselves. They just reap the rewards. They make a bunch of money. They siphon aid. They enslave the Palestinian people. They all live in luxury penthouses in Qatar. And the Qatar government announced, if you are affiliated with Hamas, you need to leave the country immediately. Because they know Trump is going to bring the hammer down on these piece of trash terrorists, these terrorist rats. They can go back into the sewers where they came from. And Vladimir Putin of Russia and Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine, they have both expressed, one congratulated Trump, which is, something that all leaders, big leaders and big players will do no matter who gets elected. They would have done the same for Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or Ronald McDonald if he got elected president. But they've expressed the readiness to come to the table and restart peace talks and negotiations to end this war. So I don't know if he has the ability or the power to actually end the war as president-elect, as he said, but Biden is doing his damnedest to prevent him from doing that. Joe Biden wants to cement his legacy as a pro-war president, as a poor economy president, as a culture war-infested president, as someone who prioritized corporate interest, whether it's on the COVID side, whether it's on the war side. This is Joe Biden's legacy. Dead Ukrainians, dead NATO members, dead Russians. Death all around. The metaphorical and the physical death of American people when it comes to people who are getting killed by the opioid epidemic under his watch. People who are getting killed in foreign conflicts, which Kamala Harris lied and said there are no U.S. troops on foreign soil. There are a lot. There are no foreign troops. There are no U.S. troops in foreign war zones, There are. Who do you think is training Ukrainians to use these weapons that they've never used before? They're not using YouTube. So Biden's legacy. Trying to push us to within a couple minutes of midnight on the nuclear clock. Biden approved Ukraine's use of U.S. missiles to strike inside Russia. And shortly after, a couple days later, he also approved their use of anti-personnel mines, which they're terrible. They're terrifying for what they do. Their main use, which is obviously someone steps on it, they get blown up. But what's even more disgusting about these is that they're apparently, I don't know much about them because I'm, not in the military, never used them, but they're hard to disarm. So if and when this war ends, after having placed these anti-personnel mines, the ones that didn't go off, they're just going to sit there. And there are numerous stories, numerous incidences of these being used around the world when the war is over, years have gone, a kid walks by, he throws a ball, or he just wants to climb a tree, and he steps on a mine and gets blown up. This can happen. This probably will happen, because apparently these are hard to disarm. So that's gross in and of itself. But after Biden approved Ukraine's use of US and NATO missiles to strike within Russia, they used US, UK, and French Croissant missiles, and they struck Russia, and Russia retaliated. They responded with the ballistic missile use to show their capability. Apparently, again, I'm not a foreign policy expert, not a military weapons expert, but I have read that this ballistic missile that they used was new. This was a new technology that people were not familiar with. I'm sure the U.S. military and the intelligence communities, I'm sure they were aware. I'm sure they knew this was going to happen. It had to happen. Putin was not going to allow Russia to get struck by NATO missiles and weapons and not respond. The psychopaths, the bloodthirsty people that he surrounded himself with, the oligarchs that have been calling for him to use nuclear weapons on Ukraine and Poland and other NATO countries, surrounding NATO countries, these people were not going to let him get away with not responding. So clearly he did this as a show of force, and some people claim that these missiles are nuclear capable. So that's Joe Biden's legacy, pushing us closer to the brink of World War III. Huge provocation on the United States and NATO side. I know a lot of people have said, well, we should have allowed them to use it a long time ago. Then they would have won. Really? What define win? A Ukrainian win is so poorly defined, and what is defined as a Ukrainian win is so ridiculous and untenable and nearly impossible. The only two main goals for a Ukrainian win are the removal of Vladimir Putin, so regime change in Russia, and Ukrainian entrance into NATO. Ukrainian entrance into NATO is less likely than regime change in Russia. No NATO country would vote yes on taking Ukraine into NATO while there are Russian troops on Ukrainian soil, because that would immediately mean war with NATO. You could say that Russia's already pretty much at war with NATO, but that would never happen. Not a single member of NATO would vote yes for this. So it's impossible at this moment in time. So neither of these things are going to happen. It's even more unlikely for NATO to be joined into Ukraine, Ukraine to be joined into NATO if there is regime change. If there's regime change, all you have to do is just look up a couple months into the beginning of this part of the war, this leg of the war, because it started in 2014. There was a New York Times article that listed, it was a succession plan or succession list of 10 potential, from like highest to lowest probability of people that would replace Putin if there was regime change, if something happened to him. And I'm pretty sure that guy Prigozhin was first or second in line. But all these people have publicly stated the desire to use nuclear weapons against NATO, against Ukraine. So we've gotten to the point where someone like Vladimir Putin, who I'm not a fan of, I don't like him. I've stated many times before, I don't care what your justification is, that you have no justification for killing innocent people. I don't care what your reason is. I don't care if you're upset about NATO surrounding you. I don't care if you're upset about Western weapons being pointed at Russia. The second you kill innocent people, I don't like you. I don't trust you. I've never liked Putin. I've never trusted him. But at the end of the day, we can't undo what's done. We can prevent it from happening in the future. But there are always going to be an infinite amount of roads and paths you can take. Choosing to invade a sovereign nation, choosing to kill innocent people. That brings you down a couple pegs in my book. And the same goes for many Western leaders. The same goes for scumbags like Boris Johnson, who, on behalf of the United States and NATO, prevented this war from ending only a couple months in. They're very close to Zelensky and Russia. Zelensky and Putin, or Russia and Ukraine, had agreed to some peace terms, and Boris Johnson flew to Ukraine, told Zelensky, "You are not going to do this. You are not going to let Vladimir Putin win." And he single-handedly, like I said, with as a proxy for the rest of NATO and the United States, kept this war from ending just a couple months after it started. So scumbags like Boris Johnson, scumbags, bloodthirsty people like the people that surround Vladimir Putin, these people should not be trusted. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, can you blame Russia for striking Ukraine with these missiles? It makes sense to me. It makes logical sense to me that you would have to respond. You couldn't. If the roles were reversed, when people get super, they start throwing out these buzz terms about Putin being a fascist, Putin being a dictator. You can say there are fascistic or dictatoristic elements of his regime. There definitely are. There's some shady things that go on in Russia. They don't have freedom of speech. They have Russian state media. But a lot of the times people like to sit here and think, okay, America is high and mighty. We wouldn't do the same thing. But we absolutely would. If China or Russia started to put missiles pointed at the United States, they put them in Mexico, they put them in Canada, or better yet, they put them in Cuba and had them pointed at the United States, what would happen? Oh wait, we've seen this happen. Did America just let them do it? No, we responded in kind. As any country would. Any country would react the way that Russia did if they were surrounded by adversarial enemies and weapons. It happened already before. And we tried to assassinate the leader of Cuba in response because we didn't like that Russia was putting missiles in Cuba pointed at the United States. Cuba is only 7 miles off the coast of Florida. So it was very, very close to the United States. And the roles were reversed. And people act like Russia's response was just ridiculous and animalistic. Like I said, there is no justification for the taking of innocent human life. Period. End of story. People have to be careful, though, when it comes to falling for war propaganda. Because I've had many people tell me that this is, or you can just see it. The media will continue to lie. The same media that has purchased a butt ton of stocks because they got word from a military member or an intelligence member or someone who was connected before this war started. Many members of the media bought defense contracting stocks. Many members of Congress did it. For example, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she tweeted once, "There are some scumbag, war profiteers who are making money off of this war, the Russia-Ukraine war, and it needs to stop." Meanwhile, she was one of those people. She loaded up on defense contracting stocks either before or in the beginnings of this war. So all of these people are the same. All of them are scumbags. Marjorie Taylor Greene is no different than the rest. Just because she makes some good points about culture war issues, I don't give a crap about culture war issues. There is not a single culture war issue that I voted for that really changed my opinion with voting. Maybe one. There might be one, but I'm not even going to mention that because that's going to be too obvious. But that being said, do not fall for this war propaganda that Ukraine is going to win. Ukraine can win. The counteroffensive has been spectacular. It's been so successful. Russia is trembling in their boots. That's why every time they launch a missile and they use a show of force, it's because they're scared. Vladimir Putin's scared. We're going to win. Keep funneling money to Ukraine. Keep sending them money. Keep arming these poor, not here by choice, mid-20-year-old young men and women. Send them to battle. Send them to get their heads blown off. Send them to get bombed by Russian weapons. Point that weapon at that innocent Russian guy who got conscripted. He probably survived the first conscription but didn't survive the second one. Let's continue to push this war because Ukraine can win. Ukraine cannot win. Not in the way that is defined as their end goal, which, like I said, was entrance into NATO and regime change in Russia. Look at the front lines of Ukraine. This is a simple picture that shows the front lines of Ukraine. Does this look like they're winning? Does it look like they're winning? There are better defined, better graphics out there that have arrows, showing troop direction. But in 2 years, depending on the figures that you believe, but grouping the innocent people together, those that are conscripted, those that didn't choose to be there, those that are probably pointing weapons at family members or friends, just because one is born across the border in Ukraine and one was born across the border in Russia, hundreds of thousands of innocent lives have been taken. Does this little bit of counteroffensive land right here as of November of 2024, does this look like a success to you? Does it look like Ukraine can win? If you take the most conservative, just take the conservative, which are definitely not accurate, the most conservative Ukrainian loss of life when it comes to their military and their soldiers, and you take into consideration not the entire Ukrainian population, because you're not going to send the elderly to go fight. You're not going to send children to go fight. Who knows? Maybe they will. Maybe they'll get that desperate. But if you just take into account the current conservative figures of how many soldiers have died, how many Ukrainian soldiers have died, this right here, this small counteroffensive, that's not sustainable with the amount of soldiers that they've lost, with the amount of life that has been lost, let alone a completely successful banishing of all Russian soldiers from Ukrainian soil. That's not going to happen. Ukraine cannot win. Not like this. To me, a win is stopping casualties, ending the war, allowing a rebuilding of Ukraine. That is a real victory. A fake victory, a pipe dream of joining NATO in the middle of a war or regime change, that's ridiculous. It's not going to happen. The longer the war goes on, the worse it is for everybody involved. Period. And I know, I've actually heard, I couldn't believe that some people have said this out loud. I actually heard this from someone I know who is more of a neocon, more of a pro-American, no matter what, pro-American at the behest of the rest of the world, who cares? They said, oh no, it's okay. It's okay that Ukraine is being destroyed, because eventually it'll just get rebuilt and by Americans, by American companies. We'll make money off of it. And then it will just be a new revamped and modernized Germany. It'll be a new puppet state of the United States. Not that Germany is a puppet state of the United States, but it'll just be a new ally. We'll rebuild it. We'll make it nice. We'll make it democratized. So it's okay that they're getting killed. It's okay that they're getting destroyed. It's okay that their history is being wiped out, because America can make money and we can benefit from it. That was something that somebody actually told me. And that's not a far-fetched perspective. This is a perspective that many people feel. Lindsey Graham, one of the most powerful Republicans that exists today, talked about it. He outright said, Ukraine is filled with natural resources. We can't let Vladimir Putin take control of those valuable resources. So there's precious metals, there's a lot of fertile farmland, it's the breadbasket of Europe. It's been called that for a long time. And warhawks like Lindsey Graham, who, when he advocates for regime change, when he advocates for the use of U.S. weapons to strike within Russia, when he advocates no peace, when he advocates to continue to push this endless proxy war, tossing Ukrainian lives down the toilet, acting gleeful and talking gleefully about the amount of Russians who have been killed. That's because Lindsey Graham's not going to go to war. His children, if he has any, God forbid, are not going to go to war. All of these politicians, they have bunkers that they think will protect them from a nuclear apocalypse. They have multiple homes. They have places they can flee to. They have money. They can survive sending $6 billion to Ukraine, or $10 billion to Ukraine. Speaking of that, Joe Biden's legacy. Joe Biden also introduced a bill to forgive Ukraine of their debt. Their debt to us, to the American taxpayers, the people that are funding their counteroffensive, quote unquote. This little counteroffensive right here, which hasn't changed much from the counteroffensive from March of 2022 or the November of 2022. Maybe I'm interpreting this wrong. Regardless, Joe Biden wants to wipe. What about my debt? I actually don't have any debt. What about friends and family that I know that were preyed upon by greedy colleges or greedy banks who now have crippling debt, whether it be for college, whether it be for a car or a house? What about that debt? So when Ukraine doesn't pay the bill, when they don't make their monthly installment, the President of the United States introduces a bill to forgive them of that. What about us? What about our debt? If I miss a couple car payments, the banks who are backed and bailed out by Obama and Biden and different presidents and administrations, they come and take my car. They'll come and take my house. They'll kick me out of my house. Why must Americans continue to fund wars that don't have our interest in mind? Why should the debt be wiped? I mean, we're never going to see the money anyways. It's not like we're going to get that money back. The IRS doubled in size, and to me, they're less efficient than they were before. That's Joe Biden's legacy. Continuation. This is the beginning of multiple wars that should have never happened, that would have never happened had this current administration not taken power or not gotten into power. I have to be careful with how I say this because this is going to go on YouTube. But don't fall for the war propaganda. No matter what, if the war continues to go on, more people will die, period. I'm not pro-Russian. I'm not pro-Putin. I'm not pro-Ukrainian. I'm not pro anything except human life in the United States. And it is not in the United States' interest to continue to spend my taxpayer money, my Social Security fund. It's not in my interest for people that I know personally to be deployed to Poland, operating drones, training Ukrainians how to use Patriot missiles, missile defense systems, teaching them how to arm these anti-personnel mines. It's not in my interest to see my brothers and sisters killed, to see my fellow Americans, to see my fellow humans die over a war. And that does not diminish Vladimir Putin of any responsibility. I've said this before. He chose to invade. He chose to annex Crimea in 2014. He's choosing to conscript soldiers. Not once, but I believe twice. Ukraine has done it as well a couple times. The blood is on all these leaders' hands. And I hope that cooler heads prevail. We're trending in the right direction with Trump. And not just that, but just also domestically. You know, I'm really excited to see what type of experience and fresh anti-war, not fully anti-war. Tulsi Gabbard is not fully anti-war. She has been great on the Russia-Ukraine war, but in other conflicts, she's advocated for more support for certain regions, Israel specifically. RFK Jr., I'm very excited. Also, I'm excited to see what perspectives and what ideas and what kind of reform Tulsi Gabbard can bring. I hope that she can help clamp down on the intelligence industrial complex, the military industrial complex, which are all one and the same. It's like the opposite of the Holy Trinity. The media industrial complex, the military industrial complex, and the security or the surveillance state industrial complex. Whatever you call it, add industrial complex to it, and you'll sound 1,000 times smarter than you actually are. But I'm excited to see, one of the top 3 issues that I voted on was American health. The fact that these corporations have been running rampant, poisoning our food, poisoning our pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals, which are very important to sustain human life. Modern lifestyles come with modern issues and modern health problems. Things like, back and neck and spine problems that didn't exist before, but they do because now we're living sedentary lifestyles, and that's going to change the chemistry of our body depending on, our lifestyle. It's different. And with that comes the need for new treatments, new, I don't want to say products, but new solutions to newer health issues. And I'm very excited to see how RFK Jr., addresses the rampant corruption within the health community, the way that I'm hoping Tulsi Gabbard does with the military and the intelligence community. Which I don't know much about the intelligence community, but I trust Tulsi Gabbard. I don't agree with her on everything, but I trust her, especially the fact that she has spent time deployed overseas in active war zones. She has seen war up close and personal. She knows exactly how terrible it can be, which is why she is, for the most part, anti-war. And I'll take that. I will take that win. And I'm looking forward to seeing RFK Jr. cleaning up the food, cleaning up the corruption in the FDA, and different aspects of the health apparatus in the United States, not just the FDA, the NIH, the CDC, the WHO is not a United States exclusive committee, but you get what I'm saying. I mean, like I said, my brain is starting to get a little foggy because this is the second time I'm doing this episode, but that's gonna end it. I hope this feels more positive than I hopefully made it sound. I am very excited. I'm excited. Like I said, as president-elect, Donald Trump is already making potentially, or signaling towards a positive direction. Certain leaders around the world, big players in the world, Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, countries in the Middle East, they are posturing in a positive direction. So I'm excited. At the end of the day, I just want everyone to prosper. I know that that's not feasible, maybe not right now, but the first step is minimizing and reducing conflict as much as possible. Will we ever have a day where there is no war? Probably not. Not while human beings are involved and while we are in the driver's seat completely. But the less conflicts there are, the less innocent lives that are being taken, less destruction of culture and history and societies, the better. So we're trending in the right direction. I hope Trump does what he's promised that he'll do. I hope he makes a positive impact. I hope he leaves a lasting legacy. And I hope that this new administration is better than his first. And anybody who wishes or hopes for Trump to fail, if you're an American, you should be ashamed. It's your country. You should, no matter who you vote for, hope that the country succeeds and gets better and improves and addresses a lot of its issues. Because there are a lot of issues in America right now. I still am never going to move back, but I still want my family and friends to prosper and to do well and be healthier and safer and better off and more mentally sound. So regardless of if you voted for Trump or not, or if you even care, stay active in your community if you want to see real change. Stay active in local happenings, local elections. We all want the same thing. We all want to succeed. We all want to be safe. We all want our families to do well. Don't forget that. We have more in common than not. Also, with Thanksgiving coming, don't talk politics. Don't talk politics if you can't do it in a mature way. Most people can't do it in a mature way, I think, sadly. So, shut up. No one wants to hear your political opinions. I'm not going to bring up what I think about the Russia-Ukraine conflict or what I think about tariffs on China. I'm not going to do that while eating turkey. I'm going to say, hey, uncle, can you pass me the stuffing? And then I'm going to eat the stuffing with a smile on my face. Keep your mouth shut. Nobody wants to hear it. Truly. No one wants to hear it ever, especially not on Thanksgiving. Shut your mouth. We don't want to hear it. Keep politics name out your effing mouth, or whatever Will Smith said. Anyway, I'm starting to go crazy. That's going to do it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you took something away from it. I hope you guys are staying hydrated, staying safe. Now is the best time to buy some official Xendependently minded merch. Right now in Germany, it's starting to snow. The weather is, right now it's dreary, it's cloudy, it was raining, but we did get a little bit of snow in the past couple days. So if you're in a place that's cold, get yourself a hoodie, get yourself a nice jacket, a beanie, maybe a coffee mug to sip some nice hot cocoa or some apple cider. Get yourself a trucker hat if it's still a little warm where you're at. Get yourself some merch. Get yourself some decals. Start sticking them around on stop signs. Well, I don't know if that's illegal or not. Don't stick them on stop signs if it's illegal. Do if it is legal. Stick them on walls. Go around the city and spread the word. Xendependently Minded is the best current events commentary and social commentary podcast out there. Support the show. Support the Child Mind Institute, either directly or indirectly by buying some merch, because 100% of the merch proceeds gets donated to the Child Mind Institute, which, if you don't know, is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to helping families with children that suffer from mental illness. It's a great cause. I support the cause. I've used all of the merch sales. I've only done one payment so far because only a few people I know bought some merch, but nevertheless, now is the best time. So support the show, support the Child Mind Institute, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode. As always, stay safe, stay away from those crazies out there. Thank you.